Hello and welcome to a new video. Today I'd like to talk about what I consider to be one of Disney's greatest blunders in terms of its acquisition of Star Wars and what it's produced with that IP. And that is in the form of what's known as Reylos. Now, before I go any further, I want to clarify I'm not talking about the existence of Reylos as Disney's blunder, but instead the alienation that Disney has caused to these Reylos. For those not in the know, Reylos are a specific subset of Star Wars fans who take a particular interest in the romantic pairing between Rey Palpatine and Kylo Ren. Reylos are primarily heterosexual females ranging from mid-teens to mid-20s who can be found posting fan fictions, fan arts, fan music videos about their favorite OTP. The reason I'm talking about these people in the first place is because for all the criticism that people have levied at Disney's sequel trilogy, and good grief, is there quite a lot. The whole thing's been dissected atom by a numerous amount of content creators on YouTube, as well as comment sections and forums on other websites. There's really no stone left unturned. Except there's one overarching bias that comes with all of these people criticizing the sequel trilogy. Some common thread amongst all of them that I think might cloud some judgment or leave some point of view left unseen. And that common bias is simply they give a shit about Star Wars and did so before the sequel trilogy came out. For an ultra-capitalistic company like Disney, making enough to cover all expenses isn't enough, and a marginal increase of new fans, people who walked into the room and liked what they see, is not enough. Line numbers, quarterly profits, earnings, sales, whatever, it has to go up, and it has to go up drastically. So, in the perpetual quest to make line go up, companies like Disney will radically alter their properties in hopes of attracting new fans while retaining the old. This, more often than not, especially for Disney, ends in disaster as it ends up alienating the core fan base that made the franchise popular in the first place. At best, they find it no longer recognizable and want nothing to do with it. At worst, they find the changes to be outright disrespectful and end up resenting it. Consider what fans of Star Wars, especially the original trilogy, were greeted with the new trilogy. Han Solo's character reverted completely back to square one, where he's now a low-level smuggler once more. Leia is a failed politician who is in command of what's effectively a superfluous participation trophy army. Also, the romance that was building up in the previous trilogy between her and Han Solo has ended in bitter divorce and resentment. Luke Skywalker isn't even fucking in it, except for the very end. A major part of the entire movie was people trying to find Luke Skywalker, but R2-D2 was asleep the entire time, and no one thought to wake him up and ask, even though he would know. C-3PO has a visually distinct red arm that's great for merchandising. And Chewbacca was kind of there helping along, though he was snubbed out of a heartfelt moment with Leia over Han's death because Rey was sad. And this is just episode 7. It gets even worse in episode 8, where unfortunately Luke Skywalker is a major part of the movie and receives a thorough character assassination. Then episode 9, where the entire trilogy effectively becomes two grown man-baby pretentious hacks playing tug-of-war over the plot of the franchise, and the rope cost several $billion. It's a disaster for anyone who gave a shit about the property before Disney bought it. So with everyone who isn't a perpetual consumer, if it has Star Wars on it, it's good crowd, saying fuck this sucks, I don't wanna engage in this anymore, what's left but the new audience? During one screening of The Rise of Skywalker, a bunch of Reylos have seen fit to buy out that theater at the time in order to have a little Reylo get-together and watch in anticipation as Rey and Kylo Ren's romance reaches its peak. And this is the end result in the infamous Rey Skywalker scene.
There's been no one for so long. Who are you? I'm Rey.
Not
Rey
you.
who?
Not you. Oh God. No. No!
Please no. Please no. Where's Ben? Where the fuck is Ben?
Rey Skywalker.
No! Oh, somebody's already leaving. Somebody's already bailed.
Fucking hate
Oh,
Star
somebody's
Wars.
bailed. And everybody's unhappy.
I want my fucking money back.
And we have people who want their money back.
That one Reylo shouting that she fucking hates Star Wars as J.J. Abrams' name comes on screen. Comedic timing genius. Great work to everyone involved. Except J.J. Abrams, you fucking blew it. But I can't stress enough how much of a problem this is for Disney, as this is their novel demographic, the new eyes and open wallets engaging in Star Wars. And given the fact they've already pissed off all of their legacy fans, that's pretty fucking disastrous. At this point, these Reylos are worth their weight in gold, and they blew it. Like I said before, Reylos as a demographic are primarily heterosexual females, teenage to young adults. And as much as some people will probably want to passionately argue against the notion, it is a simple fact that is a demographic that has never been traditionally invested in Star Wars. If they're interested in anything, it's probably gonna be stuff like The Hunger Games or Twilight, not the funny space wizard movies with the laser swords. And it is interesting that a lot of them probably were interested in Twilight, as a dynamic between Kylo Ren and Rey Palpatine is very similar to the dynamic between Edward Cullen and Bella Swan. Keep that in mind, cause I'll be coming back to that later. But why are Reylos so significant to Disney, or should have been significant to Disney? It's because they're fans without any expectations. Even beyond the dipshits who are saying it's Star Wars so it must be good, Reylos are a unique addition in the sense that they don't have any real preconceived notions of what a good Star Wars movie is. They've probably seen some of the other films, they've probably liked some of the other films, but they were never invested in Star Wars. And now they are. And they're invested without caring that much about how legacy characters are treated, how the new films handle the world building and lore, whether or not these films break established rules. They're primarily interested in the pairing between Kylo Ren and Rey, and they're going to engage in that and buy merchandise and do all the stuff that Disney really wants them to do. They don't even care that the movie is bad. This is episode 9, By this point, objectively, these films have been fucking terrible, and they still bought out a screening because they were still excited for a single prospect of Kylo Ren and Rey's relationship blossoming. They were such an easy audience to retain, but because they killed off Kylo Ren in Episode 9, right after he and Rey kissed, no less, they don't want anything to do with Star Wars anymore. Recently, it was announced that Daisy Ridley is set to reprise her role as Rey, which must either mean her acting career isn't going very well, or there's quite a few zeros on that sign-on check, or both. So is this the thing that can bring the Reylos back and open their wallets once more? The grand return of the Reylo army? No. Even though one of the two are still alive, which is better than what the Legacy fans got, by virtue of them being fans of a pairing, one of two isn't going to suffice, and even worse, the wrong one was left alive. Earlier in the video, I talked about how the dynamic between Rey and Kylo is very similar to the dynamic between Bella and Edward. And Rey herself is very similar in nature to Bella Swan, with one of the most outstanding similarities being that both characters are what's often described as a Mary Sue. A Mary Sue is a character archetype reminiscent of bad writing where effectively the character's almost perfect with no outstanding or extraordinary flaws to overcome in their journey. The second major similarity between the two is that there's not much character to them, which makes them very easy for the audience to project themselves onto the character. Imagine being in the character's shoes. The Reylos get to project themselves into the Star Wars universe, overcoming any obstacle and interacting with the beefcake stud muffin that is Kylo Ren. Despite being half of the pairing, Rey wasn't the critical half. She was the vessel that allowed these fans to precariously live out their own fantasies. And now she's the only one left, and the character they actually fantasized about is dead. The only person who's really invested in Rey is Kathleen Kennedy. And the fact that she hasn't gotten the boot despite all these blunders and flops tells me that she probably has compromising material on someone higher up. The sort that would make you say, Jesus Christ, that's a child, if you catch my drift. So now what Disney is left with is a bunch of pissed off Legacy fans because Disney doesn't know how to introduce a new kid on the block without turning all the old kids uncharacteristically into stupid assholes. And all the new fans are pissed off because they lost their favorite character. He's dead and they can't imagine themselves as Rey fucking him. But given that Reylos were far harder to upset and far easier to please, didn't have any preconceived expectations of quality Star Wars, driving them away definitely does seem like one of Disney's biggest blunders in regards to Star Wars. So yeah, that's yet another video on this website ranting about how bad the Star Wars sequels are. I hope you enjoyed the video, that I gave you something to think about and otherwise entertained you. Take care.